I realize that you are at all different levels of being able to do this. There are, hopefully, you all know the Mer-Ka-Ba. That's a big advantage. We don't have to talk about that, which takes forever. And I think that most of you have your beams out. I've looked at quite a few of you. You're doing very well. Most of them I've seen. Better than I've seen before. I don't know really why. Usually when they come out, the beams are usually not perfectly straight for a while. They'll come out and they'll kind of droop or bend or something else like that. You want to know funny things as we're talking about sexual energy. It took me a long time to figure this out. Sometimes you see people and the things go like this. They're little like horns. And I thought it was just kind of funny, but it is interesting that when somebody really gets into creation and they're doing sexual energy, they're really into it, their little side ones kind of turn into horns. They do. It's. I think that's maybe why we say that or think about it. But they do become horns in other animals and things. They literally, that is the places where they emerge. Anyway, so we know the Mer-Ka-Ba. We've got our beams of light out, and I think you've done pretty good on that. Just keep working on it, and I don't think there'll be a problem. Usually it just requires a little more energy. When they're crooked or got a little bends or things like that, it just means more energy. They'll straighten out. It's kind of like those long balloons. You blow them and they're not quite full. They pop out. It'll do that. And so we then know about the heart, and there's varying degrees of, some people can get in, some people can't, etc. And it's just, you just really have, that one, the easiest way is to really be very childlike when you're doing that and not get stressed out. I gotta do this. You'll never do it with that attitude. You have to be relaxed. And the connection to the earth and to the sun to create that vibration that gets inside of you, find your way. Today, when I lead you through, will bring you back through I'm going to use a different system, because yesterday we used the one where we go behind the heart and go in. And for all of you that are already there, you just go there. You don't have to listen to what I'm doing. You can just go to your heart. You don't have to worry about it. But for the other ones, we're going to try a different way today. It's simpler and it's more female, where you just go into the heart and use an intuition. You say, I'm going to move, and when I stop, I will be there. And you just start moving, and sometimes it moves all around in different ways, or sometimes it goes straight to it, but whatever it does, when you stop, you're there, and you just have to trust yourself. It's a very simple, easy way to work, but it does work for a lot of people. So we tried the other one, now we'll try this one. But now you can use it a second time, that same procedure. It always leads you into the outer part of the sacred place of the heart. But now you need to find the tiny place. And that sometimes takes a long time. But if you use your intuition again, and you say, okay, I'm in, and you ask for light, you feel the vibration, and now you're sitting there inside the outside, let yourself move again with the intention that your movement will take you straight to that place. And then when you get there, it'll either put you right in it, or it'll bring it right up to where it is. And just trust it. Okay, that's it, and go in. And so today we need to find the tiny space, and that's what we're going to do. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Once we get into the tiny space, then immediately you begin to rub that spot on the tip of the tongue. Remember to pull it out, like sucking, like the clicking sound, like pulling it out, and then begin to massage. And every 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, if it starts to get a little dry, stop, lubricate it, and keep going. And you just keep doing that. And then once you do that, you bring your attention to the pineal gland, not the chakra, but the gland. And with your intention, you have it look at this spot up here, and it's looking up, and you turn it so that it looks through this place. And at that moment, when you're looking through that place, it isn't essential, but it will help you if you slightly cross your eyes and you look at this place. So your eyes can be closed, but you ever so cross them a little bit so that you're looking up high where this place is, because it'll keep you focused on looking out of here and not out of here. It's so easy when you're in meditation to forget. And you're doing all this stuff, but you're actually looking out of these eyes and nothing happens. You can do it for 10 years, but nothing will happen. You must look out of this higher place. You know, like in India, you see the little red dot that they put in, but very often it's usually down low, down here. And it's not the place. It really is a lot higher. It's way up here. I know I'm spending a lot of time on that, but it's one of the places where people make mistakes, and it's one of those little mistakes that could just ruin everything. And then you look toward the pituitary chakra. And the pituitary chakra is kind of like when you're looking at this one inside of yourself, when you're putting the beams of light, it'll be either brighter or darker in a little spot in front of you. And that's what you're aiming at, but it's going to be up here, not down here. It's going to be high. And you just look at that, and you watch it, and you have to then wait for this green light. If the green light doesn't appear, you can't go beyond that at this time. But you know what to do. So you have to practice, and you'll find a place. And again, very often when you get home and you're in the safety of your own little place and everything else, there's not people watching and all that other stuff, it's sometimes easier. And at which point that light will appear. I've heard this so many times from people. Wow, I couldn't do it in the class. I tried, but when I got home, it seemed easier somehow, and you were able to do it. So once the green light happens, then remember, you'll see it spiral, connect, at which point instantly behind that you can follow right through with your intention and connect to the one out in space in front of it. At that point, the sphere will appear around you, and this will all be a halo. It'll all be glowing around your head. And you are now in the exact configuration to begin the process. Now, what I didn't say last time, and I'll say now, is that once, say you've done all this, it's all happening, you've connected all the beams, everything's there. You don't have to think about the sphere or the color. You're not going to see that because you're in meditation. But once you've done all that, you keep the tongue going, but forget this. Forget all this. Bring your attention back down to the tiny place in the heart. Keep the tongue going and just be in the image world. And just stay in the image world and watch the images. You can totally get into the images and anything else, but just keep the physical body connected with the tongue. And at which point you can either use intention and create you can actually create the images, or you can let the images flow and let life work through you, if depending on your nature and who you are. And I want to talk about this tiny space for just a moment too. The tiny space is where all the worlds were created, everything. Every last planet, every last galaxy, everything was created from there. And it's a place where what you realize after time is that when you're in this space and you're there, you and God are one. I mean, I know some people have a hard time even saying those words, but I think you'll come to the same conclusion. You can think of yourself merging with God or God merging with you, but it is, you're not human in that space. You're something else. And all sacred, all tiny spaces of the heart are all one. They're the same. And so you could, one of the things we used to do, and you could still do this even now if you want to, if you have someone that's died before, they're not even here anymore, but you can go into that space and ask them to be there, and poof, there they are, real, in the body that they had, what that you're familiar with. And you can talk to them, and it's real time. I've even had people prove it, that where people have died, and they left. This person was talking about where they left something in the ground somewhere or something, and nobody knew where it was or how to get to it. And when they went in there, they just said, "Where is it?" And they said exactly where it was. Bam, that's right where it was. You can set things up to prove if you want. And I do this all the time. I want to know. It's either real or it's not real, and I want to know for sure it's real. So I'm always making tests to find out. It's okay. This is like, the heart is like your mother. It's not going to, children test their mothers all the time. It's okay. It's not mean that you don't love your mother or anything. It's just you're checking things out, and it's all right. It's okay. And so you can run tests on it. And those tests, when you see them, they increase your confidence. They make you stronger, and it allows you to do greater things. So another thing that you can do, which is very powerful in evolution, is when you're in that tiny space, you can bring your higher self in. It's probably easiest to bring the angelic world in because we're so close in vibration to them. But you could bring higher forms of yourself in, and you can talk to yourself right then and there. Sometimes by making that connection inside your heart to your higher part of your higher self, we have higher selves to higher selves even. I mean, it's more complex than it seems. But once you make connection visually and with your higher self, that in itself is a big accomplishment, because then you're getting information and guidance from a part of you that not only loves you, but would do anything to protect you. And so you get very accurate knowledge and information that is, you can't always tell what it is you need, but your higher self can tell very well what it is you need. And so it's going to, that's a big one. When you get that one, you can move really rapidly. And you can do it in your heart easily, where in a normal meditation you might never be able to find your higher self, but in this you can get it really fast. It's a great thing. And then there's lots and lots more, and explore it. Just like you were a kid, it's a brand new world in there, and there's so much. I finally went, and my wife came into my space one time, and we went down those little steps that I talked about at the end and into the green light where there's doors, and we were going by one door, and we both could feel this door, and we opened this door, and there on this thing in the middle of it was a gold statue of Claudette and I in union together. And all around it were these crystals and all this stuff and everything else like that. And we discovered that in there, whenever we would go in there together, we could pick a crystal and it would begin to tell us with images something that we both needed to know. There was even a huge treasure chest over in the corner where we lifted up, and it was filled with all this gold and diamonds and all this kind of stuff. And we could draw upon that. It's just, this is I'm not saying you have that. I'm saying that we're all different. But within there is everything that you need in existence, no matter where you are. It's in your heart. We are whole, complete, and perfect, lacking nothing. And the source of how to heal anything, the source how to bring anything to us, how to bring balance, how to do it, it's all in our heart. And the more you rely on your heart, the easier life gets, and the happier you get. This is a really good thing, and I hope you guys figure this out. But don't get too, this is complicated. The Mer-Ka-Ba is complicated, and just go slow, go at your own rate, and don't be afraid or say, I'm not going to get this, and I'm going to lose it or something. It's perfect. You'll get it at exactly the right time when you need to know and when it is, but you have to stay consistent. You have to keep working on it. You can't forget, but you don't have to worry about anything, nothing at all. Just do it, and it'll all come about. And so I think I've done a second overview. Hopefully that helped a little bit. And now I'd like to ask what questions you have, because I know there's probably something in here you're not sure of. So let's just begin. Okay.
I wanted to know if it's always needed to do the thing with the tongue, or after a while you can leave it. And the second thing, in what time do you need to operate the Mer-Ka-Ba in the normal sequence, if you start from the heart and not the Mer-Ka-Ba?
Well, when we rewrite everything, it's the same information rewritten. We will begin here. And when you begin there, if somebody's starting all this work you've been doing, if you begin here and you go up through all these procedures and you go to the beam and you set this up and you connect this in, the Mer-Ka-Ba goes out automatically. You don't have to do it. And it's just an automatic thing. And then all you have to do is learn how to program it, etc., and all that other kinds of things. But the programs are, you can actually do the programming from, there may be, I don't know this yet, there may be simpler ways to do things where you can, just as you leave intention or not, you can do the same thing with the programming where you reside in here and you let your Mer-Ka-Ba be programmed by your heart. And without even your knowledge, even if you want to. And it'll just keep you exactly protected and everything else in exactly the right way without you doing really anything, really. The female way is always very simple compared to the male way. The male way is always complex. And so once we rewrite this, I'll understand it more, I'm sure, from everyone. So the other question, the first one you asked was?
If you need to do the thing with the tongue all the time, or after a while?
No. You only have to do this thing with the tongue when you want to create. If you just want to go into your heart and be there, you don't have to do the thing with the tongue. You don't need to link this together. You can just be in here. But if you wish to create something, if you wish to know something, well, you can actually get to know something without ever going through here. But still, if you every time I try to make it simple, I keep thinking of things that are more complex. There are other ways to use this information, and this is sort of a beginning thing. It's like what she was talking about, where you can instead of going from here to here, you go down to the nose, you go to the chin. There are other ways to use this configuration. I don't know what they all are. Right now I'm only going by what the angels tell me is necessary. And we've dropped out this entire thing down here below because we don't need to know it. And so there's a lot more. My job is to get you and me and everyone over into the fourth dimension. Once I get you there, you just won the game. because everything from there on in, your body's going to grow really tall. You're going to get this big brain. You're going to know a whole lot of stuff. You'll know everything about this. And so it's not so, the main thing right now is just get there. And the rest of it will happen. So I know there are probably a lot of other things we could do, but we don't need to know it right now. Maybe you do, and if you need to know it, then you can go in your heart and gain that information. You can gain any knowledge of any person that has ever lived or ever will live from within your heart. It's literally infinite in terms of what's possible.
The correlation that gets through the tongue, does it get like it's temporarily, or after a while, after several times that you do that, you don't need to use the tongue anymore?
Any time ever that you are using this system up here to connect it with the lower sphere of the heart, and you are going to do something outside of what this, if you're going to function with both of these things together, what links them together is the tongue on the roof of the mouth. And the moment it's broken, that's broken. It stops. However, if you've been doing it, you can break it, like when you're wetting your mouth and you go right back to it, then it just instantaneously is right back again. But if you take it away and don't do it for 30 minutes, it's gone. You have to start all over again. You know, it's just like sex. Exactly the same thing.
We didn't operate any of the beams on the heart. It automatically gets activated?
The beams of the heart, the angels have described where they are and how they are, and also with the one below, and how they work, and a lot of stuff to me, and have talked about the 8 breaths, and I've got a practice that I'm working on right now associated with the lower one. But I don't fully understand a lot of things that are associated with these beams and how they work exactly. But again, they're just giving me what I need to know, and they've given me more than I need to know, really. But I do know that anytime you're going to use this in association with the heart, you can't use this with the heart without the tongue on the roof of the mouth moving and touching. You have to do it. But sometimes you just want to go into your heart and just kind of explore. And like when Claudette and I went into that room, we didn't need to do this because we didn't need that. We were in the heart. And we were just finding this space that somehow we had both created. And she has the similar thing in her heart space. And so if we're just going to go into our heart and explore and or be or just have fun, which is to me is really important, then you don't have to do that. But if you're doing something that involves making a change and altering something in the outer reality, you have to have the tongue on the roof of the mouth and connect all this stuff together.
Thank you.
How long do you have to keep doing that, like at one session of a time if you want to create something?
You mean with the tongue?
Yeah.
As long as you are, until you're done. Once you set this up, then you've just got all the energetic flow set up. Mm-hmm. But then the real work happens in the tiny space of the heart. Mm-hmm. And so once you're in there and you see the image and you see what it is that you're about to create, then you just know it's done. When you get to a place you just know it's done. When it's done, it's done. You can stop.
Awesome. Thanks.
Because it happened. The translation from here to the big outer sphere happens very fast. I don't know exactly how fast, but it's very, very quick. Like I said, it moves from the toroidal field. I don't know if I talked about that or not. It moves from the, pretty certain, it's from the inner toroidal field, which is from the inner space, And those lines of energy move up and connect at this point. And these things they really are like antennae that receive these images. I'm sure that if we were in a cosmic university right now, they would think this was like a child's drawing, and they would probably go into extreme details on all kinds of levels. But on a basic level, it's this point is what's so important. This point above the head, one hand length above the head, right approximately there. That's where the image comes in, and these things are on the surface. And the image first appears here, like a nanosecond before, and then it goes to the big one. And all of it happens very fast. Once it's happened, it's happened. It's now reality. And so you don't have to keep doing this anymore. You can just, as soon as you can feel it, if you can feel when it happens. And then that's it. You can stop. You can just, or you can do something else or whatever. But that's all it is. It's pretty simple.
Do you go back to the same creation, like in your case with your house?
Mm-hmm.
You did once, and that's it?
That's it.
You
One time.
consider that?
That's it. It's happened. It's now reality. You may not see it right away. It may take a day. In our case, it took 3 days before we saw it, but that's not very long. And it's happened. In the fourth dimension, though, if you were to do something similar to this in the fourth dimension, it happens instantaneously. If you saw the image, bam, it would be there in front of you. You know, Babaji was really good at this. Remember him from... he was able to manifest entire huge palaces and everything else like that, all in a blink of an eye. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over. It isn't that there's some other spirituality. This is it. You could go in a lot more deeper, complex understanding of it all, but this is it. There is one thing, I in terms of this lower circle, I don't want to get into all 8 breaths because it is very complex and we don't need to know. But there is one thing that they have me practicing, and I'll explain that to you. It will only take a few minutes, and it may help something you're doing. In sexual energy, the ankim, which we talked about in one of the first 2 books, does everybody know what that is? Does everybody not know what I'm talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, there's quite a few people. In Egyptian philosophy, the Ankh is the key to eternal life. And on all the walls, when you see a person holding the Ankh, it means they're an immortal being. They've been marked by that. And they no longer die, which doesn't mean that their body lives forever. That's not what it means. It means that their memory remains intact forever. They never lose memory again. It goes on and on and on and on. And also, even though you've lost your memory now, immortality also means you gain all your past memory as well. And so the anking is really important in sexual energy. I guess for people who are watching this film, it is a good idea that I do this. There are energy lines and channels besides the meridians and all these other kinds of things, the way they flow. There are geometrical energy lines in the body. And there's one that runs straight up the body, and there's another one that runs on a male exactly across the nipples and goes out. And that forms that cross, the Christian cross, this being the heart chakra, exactly in the center. It crosses between those two. There's an actual energy flow or lines that work on there. And if you were to look at this from the top, looking down at the human being, you wouldn't see that, but what you would see is that. That's this way. What it means is is that there is another one of these coming out three-dimensionally this way. So when you look above, you can't see this line. It's all in that one spot. This line is that line, but there's another line coming out. There's a cross from above. And both of those symbols are used for Christianity. But there's another one that's used in Christianity, which is this one. It wasn't drawn perfectly, but all that should be exactly at that point right there. And this was a big, huge secret a long time ago. And it was pulled into Christianity, taken directly from Egyptian thought. And what this is the cross here and the three-dimensionality of the cross. But it adds one line in there, which is simply a part of the understanding of what's there. If you were to look at someone from the front, you see this. From the top, you see this. But if you look at them from the side, what you see is this. You would see this, and then you would see that. There's a loop, an energy loop that goes through the 13th chakra back to the heart chakra. And it's physically there. It's actually there. And so if you simply erase that, you get the Egyptian Ankh. This is really an important key in sexuality. That what happens is that when the energy comes up the spine, and this would be the spine here, when it comes up the spine from the base of the spine, it moves kind of like this as it's going up and passing through each one of the chakras perfectly, but moving like a snake as it goes up the spine. If you have an orgasm in this way without doing anything, the energy goes up, it goes out the top, and you just lost all that energy. You became weaker. This is why in Hinduism they actually tell men not to have orgasms. Because they realized that the Hindus they missed some important stuff. And so they had to try to compensate for it. They invented ideas that the sperm would come up through these, I forget what nadis, I think they were called. And they were just they could see what was happening, but they didn't know how to deal with it. The Egyptians knew exactly what to do to deal with it. And so the Egyptians say, no problem, you can have as many orgasms as you want. It doesn't make any difference. Just do this and it doesn't matter. Because what happens is the energy does not go up the spine like that. It goes up the spine like this, and then it wraps around here and comes back. And it keeps reverberating. I was in Holland one time, and they were testing this, and they made these long rods out of copper, and they filled them with crystals and all kinds of stuff, but I don't know about that. And in the bottom, they put a tuning fork. So they had a rod like this with a tuning fork at the end, and at the top, they had a place where you could screw different forms in. They used there's 4 basic Egyptian power forms, and they tried putting the Ankh right on the very top like that. Well, when they took the Ankh off, and they would strike the tuning fork, and I could time it, and it would go for a certain length of time, which was a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds or so, and then the sound would go away so you couldn't hear it very well after that. But if you put the Ankh on it and hit the same tuning fork with the same rod, the thing just kept going on and on and on and on. It went like a minute and a half. I mean, you could easily see the difference in time. And that's what happens in your spine. If you bring it up and you Ankh it, the energy goes up your spine. It then goes out the back comes back around, goes over through the 13th point, and comes back down to the heart chakra again, and then goes down the spine, and then keeps coming back up and wrapping around and going back down and coming up and wrapping around. And so if you ankh after an orgasm, you give yourself a lot more energy. You don't weaken yourself, you strengthen yourself. And it is their belief that this leads into eternal life, the use of sexual energy in this way. You eventually become immortal just by doing that. And so that's something you'll have to think about and decide if you want to do it or not. But, it takes practice. Huh? Oh, I can't even imagine ever having an orgasm not doing that at this point. But when it comes out, you have to. You may not have noticed before. A lot of people don't know this, but the orgasm begins with an in-breath. You pull it up, and when your in-breath comes in, you pull it up, and it's coming up. And when it gets to this point, by intention, you have to force it out the back. Now, you don't want to go out the front because just like there's an anti-life cycle and an anti-life cycle, if you go out the front, it'll slowly kill you. Maybe not slowly. I'm not really sure. I'm not even going to try it. I believe my Egyptian teachers. He says it goes out the back. It can only be it's written right on their walls. It says it can only be received from behind, meaning you have to go out the back. And so you may say, okay, I'm going to do it right when it gets there. It goes up, and you go, darn, got to do it again. That's what I mean. You might have to, really, it took me 3 or 4 times of might take a little practice, but eventually you'll get it, and once you get it, then the body gets it. And once the body understands it, it's easy after that. Then you bring it up, and it just automatically goes around and comes in. And the first few times you do it, it feels like this energy is coming down, and it feels like somebody went like that. I mean, actually hit you in your chest. It's so powerful. After you get used to it, you don't feel that bam so much anymore. But and once you set that up, and then it's just going to happen from then on, unless you put the intention that you didn't want it to happen anymore. But I don't know why, because it makes a much stronger orgasm, lasts longer, and it feels better, but it's healthier. You're actually taking prana from another dimensional world, and you're bringing it right into your body. You're filling your body with prana in a way that the body can really use. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But yeah, it's the same. When a man and a woman are facing each other, one's going one way and one's going the other way. And it's that counter-rotating field again. They're mirror images of each other. The fact that the entire configuration between a male and a female, when they're actually facing each other like this, one is a mirror image of the other one, and all of their when all of their points, if you have a female facing this way, and then a male is facing this way, and they're facing each other, all of their points line up with all your chakra points are in your body, but they're also on the tips of here. They're literally on the tips of each one of these things. The 8 basic chakras are. And so when the two are together in sexual union, these two fields are lined up perfectly. And at the moment, if they both ankh like that, what happens is the two fields actually move together, and the points all become one. If you do this, you'll find with your mate that when you're doing that you will begin to come simultaneously. It begins to get easier and easier and easier rather than just one person, another person or something. It actually becomes a simultaneous thing. It's very powerful, and it's a, well...
Is that with or without ejaculation?
No, with ejaculation. You don't have to worry about that. Because if you're Hindu, you really worry about that. But if you're Egyptian, you go for it. It doesn't matter. And but if you ejaculate and you do this, you bring it out, and you just bring it out through the top of your head. You just took all that energy and threw it in the garbage can, and you're making yourself weaker. And that's what the Hindus found out. If you keep doing that, it actually makes you old, it makes you weak, and it's not a good thing to do. And so this is one more aspect that's important when we talk about sexuality, that this is assumed that you're doing this. And then there is another thing, assuming you're doing that, and you have all these other things involved, all this other stuff known, you can connect not from your heart up, but you can connect down to the genitals. And if you do, there's a training that begins with 3 breaths. And the first one is when you feel the orgasm coming, you do the ankh. That's the first breath. And you make these breaths as deep and as long as possible, because you only have 8. If you go all 8 breaths, it's over. You have to understand that there's time involved in here. And so when it comes up, you take a really deep breath and you pull it all the way up, let it go around, and you still keep breathing in, because as long as you're breathing in, it's still flowing on breath number 1. And then when you're full, you let it out very slowly, because it continues to pump this prana into your system continuously. So it could be, you could either have just a little bit into your system, or you could have massive amounts into your system. And so you keep pumping it in there until you can, and you're breathing prana at that point, and that's with the ankh. But when you go to breath number 2, you still are breathing prana, but you're now in the Mer-Ka-Ba field. And you switch to what you're familiar with. Instead of doing this, you instantly, on the second breath, you send the energy down and up to your heart chakra, same place, but from above and from below, bring it out into the sphere, bring it out into the big sphere, and send it through the entire Mer-Ka-Ba field. And it energizes another level of your existence. And it also, you want to simultaneously see it being sent into the sphere with all the beams of light. And it's pretty much a brain thing at first, but this is the next thing that they're teaching me right there. And then on the third breath is this magical breath that I'm still trying to learn how to do, and I think I've just figured it out. I'll know, because you'll understand whether I know or not when I get there. The next one, you do not breathe prana. You don't pull prana in with your intention. You bring in void, nothing, nothingness. And so you're breathing void, and you bring it into the sphere of this Leonardo sphere, first from above and below in polarity, just like you did before, but you focus on here. And as you breathe in, but then as soon as you do, immediately, you switch, you have to learn how to switch to a way where you're breathing without polarity. I've thought about that for 4 years now or more. How do you breathe without polarity? The angel said you will know you're doing it right because you will float, you will break your connection with gravity, you will float off the ground about a foot, and your body will begin to glow in the darkness. And this is what all these saints are doing that are around the world that are in caves. They're breathing void. The only thing that's necessary to create is spirit and void. That's the only 2 things that are necessary, and they're maybe the same. But gravity is another thing that seems to be associated with void. The Russians have discovered that they now have found out that the gravity, which is everywhere, in the same way that void is everywhere, or the vacuum, they have now found out, and this would take a lot to explain, and it would take a long time, but what they're doing, the science that's coming out of Russia right now supersedes everything on earth that I'm aware of. There's nothing greater than this. And the gravity field is a living being, and it's alive. It's conscious, and they can scientifically prove it. They can communicate with it and change gravity at will when they're in direct communication with gravity. And they know when they're in connection with gravity because they break the gravity field and they float off the earth. And this is the research that they're doing over there. And so it's all the secret that lies. This is what the angels keep telling me. The secret is knowing how to breathe void without polarity. You can think about that. I've spent so much time thinking about that. I mean, it's really hard to do because I went through a million different configurations, and now I'm just now beginning to understand because of the plasma beings that are in the earth that are teaching me right now. They've now shown me the secret to all of this, but I haven't been able to actually get to the point where I can manifest it yet. But at this point now, I feel like I know where I'm going to do this, and then there's 5 more breaths in here. These are the first 3. Once you break the bounds with gravity, then there are 5 more breaths you can take, and you're breathing the elements. You're breathing fire, then earth, then water, then air, and you go through this particular stage, and then you breathe them all at once on the 8th one. And at that point, in that moment, you can create anything. Anything at all. But it usually takes 3 or more people to do that in conjunction with each other. But they said that I could do this level by myself. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm just telling you what I'm doing right now. And after many years, I'm finally getting to the place where I think I understand what the heck they're saying. Where are you?
What do you mean by polarity?
Okay. What do I mean by polarity is what he said. Positive and negative, male and female, up and down, hot and cold. In other words, you're not breathing from here. If you're breathing from above and below, that's a polarity breath. Okay, you're breathing from this end and this end, north and south, polarity. If you're breathing from inside and outside, that's polarity. How can you, if you're breathing all from outside going toward the in, it's still polarity. Or if you're breathing from the inside out, it's still polarity. I mean, how do you do that? And I could never figure out how I could even configure to make that kind of breath yet. And until recently, I have a very good idea now. We'll see what happens. Yes.
Would that be circular breathing?
Circular breathing is probably associated with it, but not in a circle. I believe it is a configuration that life uses. Remember when I talked about the golden mean rectangle, how it will go in forever and out forever, and there's 2 universes, but they're the same. It's only when you can see that male and female are not separate, but they're one. And if you can get them, if you can get the opposites to be one and not 2, then you're breathing from without polarity. And yes.
You know how when you're bringing the breath in from the top, you imagine the energy and prana coming in from the top and also from the bottom. Mm-hmm. What if you closed off the bottom and you only brought the energy in through the top?
Well, that's the same thing as like breathing. If you have a sphere and you're trying to only come in to the center, it still isn't a unity breath.
Okay.
There's still an inside and an outside of. This is like your body. Only in this case, it's more like the earth, but it's still your body. It is something. I tried that. It didn't work. I've tried a lot of things, and that's one of them too, and it didn't seem to work. And only till when I was asking this question to the polarity beings, the polarity beings, the plasma beings, they were the ones that showed me what I needed to know, and where the inside of the earth is the stars. The inside is the outside, and the outside is the inside. There is no difference between them. And so now that I see that is the reality, because it's not even there's no doubt in my mind because I was there. I went through it. I saw it. And I just as I've seen the outside, I've now seen the inside. And there is no difference between male and female, except in the way we perceive. It definitely makes a difference in how you move. If you try to move from here, from a spaceship off the surface going into there, it's very difficult to go great distances, except by doing exactly what we did in the Earth, where you go into the stars. You go right through the sun. I remember when I did this coming here. When I came here from Sirius, I flew this huge ship. I told you that, and the being I walked into a being that had been trained to fly this ship, so I didn't have to learn how. So I just rolled into this body, stood up. I was 16 feet high, and I just knew everything. I just knew exactly what to do. I looked at the ship, and I know what that is. And I went down there, sat down, and there was all this panel. I knew what every single thing was. And we took off. It took 400 people to fly this. And we took off, and we made this big, huge arc off of Sirius, third planet out from Sirius B, made this arc around, and came right at Sirius A and went just as fast as we could, just right into the sun and right through the center. And 90 seconds later, I came out this star, our sun. So I traveled all the way from Sirius to here in 90 seconds. And came out there and slowed it way down, and then went to Venus, where I began my training. But I remember, as I was making that loop, that's the one thing this body that I was using didn't know. It didn't actually understand how it worked. It knew exactly what to do, but it didn't understand the mechanism of how flying into a sun would put you somewhere else. And then the plasma beings had me do this consciously when I was in there, a very similar thing. And I get it. I get it now. I understand it. It's really simple. And but I'm still learning, and so it seems like the more you learn, the more questions you got. It just never seems to end. Yes.
I just wanted to ask you to explain more about the second type, where you send the energy to your Mer-Ka-Ba. Like, how do you do it? Like, do you connect?
This one?
Yeah. Do you connect with heart chakra, or you just go down and do you ankh?
This one is just ankhing, and we just explained that. But on the very next breath, with intention, you do what you do, where you bring the prana from the two poles and meet it in here. And then when it radiates first the sphere and it goes out of the sphere, you let it keep going. You don't contain it in anything. You let it keep going through all of your energy fields. And around this field here is a sphere, exactly the width of the disc. And so for you it's about 54 feet or so. And so you want the energy to expand from where it comes almost from the center, and then expand out into the big sphere, this big one. So it encompasses all of your Mer-Ka-Ba field. We usually don't talk about all this stuff out here. We only pretty much talk about the star tetrahedrons, which are right in the center. But there's a lot more going on. I mean, the entire universe was created just by the images that are inside that sphere. And there's a lot of stuff we don't talk about either. It's like this is the external field of the Mer-Ka-Ba. And it's shaped like, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's got a pentagon. See, you'll see hexagons and pentagons. It's a pentagon on top, pentagon on the bottom. They're faced in opposite directions. And that's the axis of your breathing tube. And then there's a sphere that goes around here. That's the outer shell. But when we talk about these kind of forms, each individual one of them, we're only talking about the surface. I'm just talking about the surface of this thing. But internally, if you could see all the lines moving in here, you can't even hardly see through this. I've got one made out of straws from McDonald's. It's very cool, though. And because there's 60 of these on here, and each one of them is a tetrahedron. And then they start forming these 5-pointed stars and 6-pointed stars that go in toward the center. And when you get all the lines of energy that are in there, it's like a solid ball almost. There's so many lines you can barely find a place you can look through. And that is the true energy field of just this one shape. And you've got thousands of these shapes inside of here. And each one has a toroidal field that's on it also. You've got a torus that goes out from this. It's even bigger. And there's these toruses inside of there, lots and lots and lots of them. They're all aligned except for the heart. It's the one thing that is not aligned. And when that orgasm happens, the whole thing aligns and you're all linked together for the first time. We're in one organized structure. That's all that's missing in us is that we don't have our heart aligned with everything else. And so, anyway, this is the that's so when I'm talking about sending the energy out, you're sending it radially out like a sun in all directions to everything that's in here. You don't have to know what all that stuff is, just intention that goes out through the entire thing. That's on the second breath. But you also want to be sure that it includes the beams of light and all that stuff in there with your intention, because that is a core aspect of this that's so important. In other words, the Mer-Ka-Ba is one thing that comes out there, but the beams of light and what goes on in the brain is a very essential, primal aspect of all of this. Even though it looks different and it looks like it's almost unrelated, it's not unrelated. It is directly connected together. And so I hope that answered your question. You just let it, just with your intention to go throughout all your fields. You don't have to know what they are. It's just the intention. Go everywhere in my light body. And that's the second breath. And the third breath is where you don't breathe prana, you breathe void. This is kind of a side thing. I know it's kind of a side thing. But if you can do this, everything else is going to happen, follow behind for sure. But we don't have to, maybe I shouldn't have talked about that. I don't know. Maybe I should have just not talked about that. So
I'd still like to ask you a question about that, because you said the other breaths are related to the elements, and I was wondering if you know about the Huna way of breathing, like they breathe the elements in through their skin, through their pore flaps?
there's, all over the world they have different ideas. A lot of people are involved in breathing the elements. And some of them have different ideas. Some think there's 4, some think there's 5, but there's really 6. There's 6 elements. And she was talking about the kahunas, right? And the kahuna is, she was talking about them breathing the elements. She didn't get into detail of what that was, but she was talking about them breathing it. And I just said that all over the world, there are people who understand the importance of breathing the elements. So if you're breathing fire, you're not breathing flames. You're breathing the essence of what fire is. If you're breathing earth, you're obviously not putting dirt in your mouth. You're breathing the essence of what that is. And when you breathe the elements, when you're creating something big, like a planet, and you want a planet to appear out of nothing, it requires all of those elements, all 6 elements, to be involved in that breathing process, or you won't create anything. And well, there's fire. Fire is the tetrahedron. The cube is earth. Octahedron is air. Icosahedron is water. And pentagonal dodecahedron is prana. And then what void is a sphere. And the sphere contains all the other 5 elements in the surface. So all of those 5 elements sit on this. A sphere will contain them perfectly. They'll be on the surface. And so void, or nothing, is the key to all creation. And so all creation really only requires void and spirit. Those 2 things. Spirit consciousness and nothing can create anything, because nothing contains everything. But you can get more precise, you might say, by precisely not only breathing just void and spirit, but also bringing in the other 5 elements through your breath. And when you do, you're setting up a vibration that is possible for anything to take place. Well, I don't want to go into the sequence right now, because we don't need it. That's what I was trying. That's why I'm feeling I'm spending too much time down on that 3rd lower sphere. We need to be in this one and continue this process. And so, and when you get to the other side of where we are right now, you'll know. You're a master on this. You know it inside and out. You'll remember everything. Oh God, yeah, here it is again. And you'll know exactly what to do. However, no matter how much of a master you are, very quickly we're going to be entering into experiences that you've probably never had before, because of the speed at which the evolution is going to be taking on, and the levels at which it's going on. It's going on to we're going to go from here to the highest level in existence, and I don't know the exact time, but I'm going to guess 7, 8, 9 years, which would normally take the entire length of a universe, usually billions and billions and billions of years. We're going to do this like the speed of light. I mean, it's going to be so fast. And I can hardly wait. If you like motorcycles, this is going to be better. So what I'd like to do is let's practice some of this stuff right now, okay? Let's get into the real thing. We've talked about it enough. I think we need to begin. So, okay, let's just practice all the way through it. And I'm going to turn this. You guys are going to have your masks on, and I'm going to turn this way so I can get a reference of where I'm at. Through this part here, I'm going to assume you're in your heart, okay? So we're not going to go into the heart right now. We'll do that when we get outside. But right now, you've left the brain, you're in the heart, you found the tiny place in the heart, and now we're going to go through from what happens when you get to the tiny place in your heart. Okay? So I'm assuming you're in the tiny place of your heart. At which point you now put your tongue on the roof of your mouth to that, and find that little spot and begin massaging it. And maybe you might suck it out a little bit, pull it out. Not with a clicking sound, but with right before you click, that pressure you pull on the roof of your mouth. Pull it out and begin to massage that little place. You actually can massage that place for, I would say, at least 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, before you even bother doing anything, because nothing's going to happen that quick, usually. Now, once you have done this a while, you could make this happen very fast. But usually it's going to take a little while. You begin massaging this place on your mouth, and again, you don't need to do anything else for a little bit, because it takes time for this energy to build and become sensitive. But when you feel that it's becoming sensitive, then that's when you know you're in the tiny space of your heart, you know where you are, but you bring your attention up to the pineal gland. And then with your intention, you tell it to look to that place that's way up above your other eyes, up higher. And you have it rotate the eye and look in the direction of that opening. That's with your intention. That's the first thing you do. Then you move your attention to the pineal chakra, which is just a tiny bit of space in front of it. And you then see the pituitary chakra in front of you. You find it. It's in front of you. The eye has been rotated. It's looking in that direction. And so in that position, you continue to look at the pituitary chakra until you see the green light. You can't go any further until you see the green light. There's nothing you can do. Your alpha is not strong enough. What you can do while you're doing this is think happy thoughts. It's kind of like Peter Pan. It's the way he was able to fly. How do you fly? You think happy thoughts. And seriously, really, you can start thinking about someone you love, or while you're doing this, or you could just feel joy. You can anything that makes you happy and feel happy. Maybe it's a cookie for you, whatever, that makes you feel happier. You've just increased the chances that the alpha is going to be strong enough. But just feeling someone that you really love is a very powerful one. And then there's nothing you can do at this point but continue the process with the tongue, knowing you're in the heart, tiny space of the heart, and looking from the pineal chakra to the pituitary chakra, and you have to wait till the light comes. Okay, let's say the light comes now. And the light appears. And then there's still nothing you can do. But you realize that the alpha is strong enough, and that it's going to happen. It will happen. Once the green light appears, it will happen. It's just a matter of time. And so you get prepared. You know that it's now going to happen. And then what's going to happen, it may take another 5 minutes or something like that, or who knows. And then this thing is going to do this amazing thing where it turns into a spiral, or it turns into concentric circles or concentric squares, or it becomes a tube, or maybe something I've never seen before. But you will know that what's happened. It's a really strong feeling when this takes place, that you know something amazing is taking place. And it happens. And so once it happens and the spiral goes in there and links with the other one, then all it takes is just the intention to look through that chakra to the one that is outside of your head and link with it. It's really easy to do that. It's not hard. That's not one that stops anybody ever. But once you connect all the way through, then that's it. You can then drop your attention on the brain altogether and bring your attention down to this tiny space of the heart. Except that you must continue the tongue moving. And now you've done that, you then either use intention or not. If you use intention, then you intend for something to happen, and you see and sense and feel the images associated with that. And then once you see it and you feel what it is, you just a knowing comes. I don't know how to say it. You just know that it's done. At which point, it's over. You can drop the tongue. You can do anything else like that. And you can either come out of the meditation, or you can go in and just stay there and keep meditating, or do something entirely different. But the creation process of what you just did is done. It's really simple. It is not complex once you understand what's going on. Okay. You can take your mask off now for a moment. I wanted you to go through it with your mask on so you could go through the sensation of the feelings of what we're talking about. I just realized I'm going to tell you what happened when I was in the chamber with him. On the fourth day or fifth day of this work, and Claudette was with me going through this too. Dr. Hart confided in me that he was about to lose everything he had. At 5 o'clock that evening, he was going to go bankrupt. And he had to go to the bank and sign these documents, and he lost everything. Because what happened was, they created, using the secret, the brain function, they've been able to prove that that's true scientifically. But and when I talked about the negative side effect coming from what you don't see, he goes, yeah, we're figuring that one out now. And what happened was, they went in and they used the brain to create so that he could make a whole system up in Canada. And when he did, this guy came in and gave him all this money, and he went out and took that money and a bunch of other money and bought this land up in Canada so that they could own the land. But he went way out on a limb to do this. So he was financially vulnerable. And then the dark side came in from the back, and the guy who was supposed to give him the final $1.5 million, which had paid off all of his bills and everything else like that, was taken by the IRS, and all his assets were frozen. And so, no money. He was out. He was going to lose everything. So he said to me, he says, I understand what you're doing now. He says, but I don't know how to do it. He says, can we do that? And he says, well, something like this is going to take 3 people. And so Claudette went in one chamber, I went in another chamber, and Dr. Hart went into another chamber. And then I was the one that was going to do the dreaming. And so I just went in there, and once I set everything up with all this stuff that we're talking about, then I said, then I saw the image of somebody coming in and saving him at the last minute. And then the images came in of these things being formed all over the place. It was kind of interesting watching what was happening. I mean, the more interest, I was letting God do it, so I was watching more stuff was coming in and all kinds of things that, I was watching all this. And then at the very end, there was this image that was just like thrown in there, which seemed pretty random. It was that Dr. Hart was going to go on Larry King Live and all of this. I go, So I went back, and after we came out of that, I told Dr. Hart the whole thing. I says, well, this is what I saw. And then at the end I said, and looks like you're going to go on Larry King Live. He goes, are you kidding me? And I said, no. This is what it said. So what happened was he went to the bank at 5 o'clock that night. He said he was down, the pen was heading to the paper, and this person broke through the doors and said, "No, no." He says, I know what's happening here, and I'm not going to let it happen. He flops down a check for $1.5 million on the table. He says, "This will cover everything." And then that night when he was asleep, and he hadn't even had a chance to even talk to me, somebody calls him from Holland and said, "I've been watching you for years, and I've got $6.5 million or something. I want one of these over here." And then right after that, then the next day, the guy from Mexico calls, and it just started. It was really weird. It was just coming from everywhere now. And so Dr. Hart told me, he says, "Well, it worked, or at least something worked." He says, "Because I was saved. I'm not going bankrupt, and I got everything." But about 3 or 4 months later, Larry King Live calls him up. They come out, they film the whole thing, and he goes on Larry King Live. It actually happened. And that was the piece. I think that the reason my heart did that was the other things you could say, well, that's coincidence, but that's just too much to be coincidence. It was like, oh yeah, we'll try this one, And that's what happened. So I think that we're just about ready. O-E-I-O-U. Sometimes Y. I'm losing control of my voice. I don't know. Do you want to try this on your own one time without me saying anything and see? No. Well, then in that case, let's go out to the land, and I will talk you all the way through it, and we'll just go through the whole thing. But all you can do is get to that place with the green light, and if you can't get the green light, you can't go any further. But if you do get the green light, and what I found in the past is 30 to maybe 40% of you will get the green light, and maybe more this time because there's 51 people that's already been in their heart. You guys can go all the way after that. Once you do that, you know what to do. Once you see the green light, it links, and then all you do is just look through to the other one. That links, and then bam, you just go down to your heart, keep the tongue going, and everything's now done inside the heart. Here we are walking out into the beautiful nature of Sedona and her red rocks that seem to be reaching to the clouds, about to have our final meditation with our group. People are excited not only because of the natural beauty, but because of our inner beauty that becomes so obvious once we enter the sacred space of our heart. As we come to the completion of our workshop, we can reflect on the stages of growth that we have experienced. On the first day, we began to realize how powerful love is and how we become weak when we enter into fear. But with love, we can change the world. And Claudette's Blue School opened our heart to our human potential. For example, she showed us our ability to see spherically, and it was only the beginning. On the second day, we learned that we can heal anything, any human disease, and talked about masters as they performed what seemed to be miracles. But really, it is just science, and it is something that all of us can do if we only focus. Then we began to heal each other in an experience that not only healed many people who were present, but the experience will stay within their hearts for the rest of their lives. On the third day, we entered the mind to realize the nature of the brain and its possible intimate relationship with the heart. We learned to activate our pineal gland and open our beams of light around our head, preparing the connection to link the heart to the brain. On day 4, the door of knowledge opened wide, and we learned, or more accurately, we remembered, the inner science of ascension. We reconnected our beams of light coming from our pineal gland And then we reconnected our heart to our brain and opened our third eye, making it possible to dream a new dream. Finally, on this, the last day, we studied the Tantra of the heart, the use of sexual energy with the creation process, and exactly how to create from the tiny space of the heart. Now we are ready to truly begin to ascend into the higher worlds of consciousness. All you need to do now is to practice, so the meditation becomes a natural part of your consciousness. You who are watching this film, I wish to thank you for having the courage to watch something that is so outside of natural consciousness. And my prayer is that you also remember the truth of your existence, begin to breathe from your tiny space of your heart, and to remember your intimate connection to the source of all life everywhere. Without even knowing you, I can say, I love you, for you are me and I am you. Trust in yourself, stay connected to Mother Earth and Father Sun, and you will find your way through the darkness of this world into the brilliant light of the new world that you will create in Lakesh, from my heart to yours.